Welcome to Under the Shell, presented by Terps and Sports Central. In this episode, we sit down with Ryan Davis, the Director of Football, Strength and Conditioning for the University of Maryland, and we also do a special draft at the end, making a starting five for athletes not on the basketball team. Should be exciting. I'm Brendan Weissel.
Joined by Sam Jane.
Big Michael House.
No Cavett again. Busy with a lot of brotherhood stuff, so won't be able to have him on this week, but he should be back soon.
We miss him, but let's get into the show. Among many things right now, it is draft season in the NFL, that is. So Combine has been going on, and we talked to Ryan Davis a little bit about that. The fastest teammates in NFL Combine history. Tell us about that, Sam.
Yeah, he called a shot. I mean, Brendan, I know when he was on there, he said, you got to watch out for some of these guys. They're going to set some serious times. And I kind of took him a little like, he's just kind of hyping up his guys, you know what I mean? And then I go on Twitter and I see Deonte Banks and Jacorian Bennett running 4 threes. I'm like, yeah, I mean, the guy knew what he was talking about. I mean, Mike, when you have those type of corners and those type of athletes, what do you think that does, you know, not only for their draft stock, but for the Maryland program as a whole now that they're getting some national attention, for having these elite athletes?
Any publicity is good publicity. And when the NFL Draft Combine, I would say one of the biggest sporting events in early March, because March Madness hasn't really picked up yet.
Right.
When that happens and you see it on social media, especially with social media nowadays, that spreads. That is pretty good for recruits. You're like, oh, if I can come here, a guy like Ryan Davis can develop me, increase my physical traits. That's good for recruiting.
Loxley talked about it. He talked about getting the tag of being a good recruiter, and anything that's gonna NFL caliber players. Goes a long way in getting players to come to Maryland.
Maryland will be pumping that in recruiting when
they already have that.
When they're looking at athletes or corners, that type of thing, they're going to be saying, hey, look who just ran the fastest teammate 40 in NFL Combine history. Our guys, you know what I mean? Those are things that they can add, and happy for those two. Obviously, great cornerback duo, and would have maybe liked to see, if you're a Maryland fan, a little bit of better pass defense while they were here.
That's what I was about to bring up. You would hope that those physical traits would, translate into a better record.
Yeah, to be fair, football is so much about, especially corner, is about, mentality and other variables. Like if your pass rush is bad, it's impossible to guard for 5 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, scheme plays into that a ton.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that when you're looking at that type of thing, I think that especially Bennett, had a really good career. Banks, I kind of think, flew under the radar, and now he's getting first-round look guys. So, I mean, again, good on them. Good on everybody else. Jacob Copeland ran a very fast time.
Jarrett ran a 4.4.
Yeah.
Which I think he's an interesting guy. I know you have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think Rakim is a super interesting prospect. I think when you look at NFL guys, they kind of are like, I mean, what is he going to do really well in the NFL, right? Because he's kind of this do-everything guy who really didn't do everything at Maryland. Like, he never had this, explosive season. He never was, a 1,000-yard guy, really. He just kind of was here. He had some moments, West Virginia. I think that was his sophomore year, right? He had a good game.
Penn State.
Yeah. So, he's an interesting guy. I think that, though, it's going to be hard for him as a smaller guy who, isn't an elite speed, isn't an elite agility guy, to get up in those high rounds. But I think as a 4th or 5th round prospect, Mike, I think he could, make a name for himself.
Yeah, like you said, it's all about being in the right system. And he gets drafted to a system like the 49ers. They can use him in so many creative ways with his speed and physical traits.
Yeah, so let's hear what Ryan Davis had to say.
Appreciate you guys having me.
All right, so just give us an update. What have you been up to since the Duke's Mayo Bowl?
We are finishing week 3 right now. I'm knee deep in the off season, training our guys, and we're finishing up our 3rd week. And we literally, as about 8 minutes ago, just got done setting up for our Friday morning run and our Friday morning lift tomorrow. So we're full speed ahead.
So, Coach, I wanted to ask, you've worked at a lot of pretty incredible places, Alabama, and now you come to Maryland, follow Coach Loxley. What's been the biggest, adjustment for you since you got here in terms of, the strength and conditioning program, what the team overall looks like and the state of the program, Obviously, both are pretty powerhouse Division I, Big Ten, SEC schools, but one is a little different in terms of the focus on it. I would say, I guess, in terms of football and things like that. Alabama football is king, obviously, down there. What's been the biggest adjustment for you since coming over here?
I think first off, I want to thank Coach Locks for thinking of me and bringing me here, because the biggest adjustment has been the work that we've had to do to try to get things turned around. And I say that I don't take my relationship with Coach for granted, because I think when your leadership is aligned, it allows you to do some of the things that we've been able to do here. And when I came here, Coach Locks had a vision, and a lot of his vision was predicated on his experience while he was with Coach Saban at Alabama. I think what people sometimes miss, Mike Locksley and me were not together at Alabama. We had 5 years between us. There was 5 years from the time I finished to the time he started. And so
you were in 09, right? Sorry to interrupt. 09 you were the part of?
Yeah, I was there in 2009, 10, 11, and 12.
Okay.
And so when Coach got there, again, we had about 5 years between us, but you're coming from a place that had the ultimate alignment where the support staff and the structure mainly stayed the same. And so those people were able to recommend me for a position with him here. And I think that in itself shows how important the alignment is, because I knew what his vision was. I lived in his vision before. And so I didn't know how hard it was going to be. I probably wasn't prepared for the amount of time, effort, and work that we've had to put into it. I don't know that the players were prepared for that. But I think overall, that's probably been the biggest adjustment, is what we had to kind of overcome from year one to now.
Yeah. Can you touch on a little bit about like a story or something among, like an anecdote you have from when you kind of first got here and maybe players came in and were like, oh shit, like this is something different. You know what I mean?
So here's what I've actually told people, and I don't know that Locks would agree with this. It's not something we've talked about, but I think our turning point in the program was in the offseason of 2020.
Oh.
And so if you look at our schedule, we finished our offseason, and that afternoon, COVID hit, and it shut everything down. So the first year I got here, we couldn't do anything. I mean, we had people watching us in the workouts, and we couldn't coach certain things with the guys. So really, we had to earn the players' trust, and that was a long process. That was a long road for us to do it. But in the offseason of 2020, we had this team where whether guys left, went to other programs or what have you, we had attrition from the first year, from 19. And when we replaced it with the guys that came in 20, we ended up having a bunch of new guys. And then the guys who were left were kind of guys that were bought into our system or our program. And I think what you guys saw as fans in 21, I think was a direct correlation to what we had gone through in the offseason of 2020. And it's kind of like, because COVID, those guys didn't know how good they were. They had no idea. All they wanted to do was work. And we had a bunch of young players that were pushing a bunch of old players. And it was very unique to the culture. But I can remember the workout, the training session that we finished in 2020, where I met with the staff and said, you know what, I think we got something. And that was about a week before COVID hit. And I was like, these guys, like, they haven't stopped. We've been going for 6 or 7 weeks. And I mean, these guys have never stopped, and they've never flinched. And that was a drastic difference from 2020 or 2019. I'm sorry, from 2019. That was a drastic difference from then.
Yeah, so you talk about how, you can kind of tell that people are working harder and stuff like that. What kind of things do you measure that off of? Like, how can you tell when the community is building and when the culture is going strong? And how can you tell when you're headed down that right path, like you said you were in that season and into now?
So obviously you have your measurable characteristics. You have all your performance measurables, but to be honest with you guys, that's not really it. Guys should get better if they're a part of a training program. Like if they have to do something and it's mandatory for them to do it and they got to show up every day, they should get better. So those performance indicators don't really tell you all that much. But now you have some cultural indicators. You know, we call these like the cheat codes, but one of my mentors, I work for him at Alabama, Scott Cochran. We talk every week. I mean, he's been a guy for me that I've leaned on a lot in this role since I've been here. But the thing that you're talking about, how do you know that your football team is getting better without looking at the performance metrics? Well, you know that when your best players in your program are emphasizing the things that are important to you. So here's the example. It doesn't matter how you finish. Doesn't matter how you choose to finish a drill. If you're running a program and you're in strength and conditioning in college football, NFL, whatever, it doesn't matter how you decide to finish a rep or a drill. What does matter, however, is everybody emphasizing the same finish. So for us, what I mean is we will say headbutt the finish. That's Coach Locke's thing. He always talks about headbutting the finish. The physical aspect of that, the metaphorical aspect of that, headbutt the finish in the classroom. But if you ever come out and watch us train, you'll see when guys are exhausted, when they're tired, when they're fatigued, our best players will be emphasizing to headbutt the finish. We tuck our shirts in. And to the average 18 and 22-year-old, they're like, man, why don't I got to tuck my shirt in coming in here to work out, man? Like, okay, are they emphasizing those things as a team? Are your best players emphasizing that when they're tired and when they're exhausted? Those are cultural indicators. And in 2020, we started to see them emphasize the things that are important to coach.
That's super interesting. I think when, especially like you be a part of teams, and it's a lot harder to preach culture when your best players are kind of the ones, maybe they're talented, but they're taking drills off, kind of like not the big, your leaders. I feel like the best teams are always really good when you have your best players as your leaders, and that speaks volumes to where the program's headed. But I was just wondering, you coached at Samford, and then came here, I believe. Samford to Maryland, how is the technology different? Because I know, and technology in the weight room is becoming such a big thing, GPS tracking, monitoring, all that type of stuff. And now you got all these resources. I'm sure that, Cole Fieldhouse is probably a little nicer than what they got over there at Samford. So what's been the biggest difference for you, and how has it helped you as a strength coach? And how in some ways, maybe, we've talked to Tyler Cronin, the head baseball trainer. He said in a way, sometimes technology can, overwhelm you with information. So how do you balance that? And what's been the biggest difference?
Well, I think when I left Samford, I spent 4 years at Colorado State, then came to Maryland. And when I got to Maryland, we were in one of the worst facilities in the country for football, for Division I football. But I liked it. I really liked the old facility that we trained in, and it was brutal. I mean, it was bad. Like, I can't make this up, guys. We were training in a group, and I had the team. We were doing our warm up, and 50 gallons of wastewater came out of the ceiling, like just leaking out of the ceiling. The best part about our team, they never flinched. We kept going. We didn't miss the workout. We put big trash cans under there, caught the water. One of the guys called facilities. They came in, they were working on it while we were in the group. Never missed a beat. We sat in the office and there was like water running down the walls into the power outlets, where we then had to remove our stuff from the office and we set up little tables out in the weight room to have our computers on. And I'm not making this up. You can look up any of my assistants that were here when we were in Gossett, and they will tell you guys, this is what we trained in. But I think for our football team, I think it gave them an edge. They never expected anything. And so we always found a way to get the work in. And that became our kind of like the mantra, the work's got to get done. So now you move into the Jones Hill house. which is arguably one of the best facilities in all of college football. We've got force plates. We've got perch that measures the velocity and bar speed and counts reps at the rack. We've got catapult, which measures mechanical workload for the players. We've got Nord boards that we measure, the hamstring deficiencies on. We have all types of stuff. We got polar heart rate monitors in the room. The problem that I see with the technology is that, and it's not just with the technology, it's really nowadays in athletics, the technology can't do the work for you. It's all well and good, man, but the work still has to get done. The best part of it is, obviously, it's helped us in recruiting. It's helped us from a functional standpoint in the group with our numbers of how we could better and more efficiently coach the guys that we've got on the team, and we have a room that's one of the largest football only rooms in the country that was developed and designed to train the football team here at the University of Maryland. So we're very specific in what we can do in our process of preparing our athletes.
I know I've looked online a bit and seen some of those videos of where you guys train, and it truly is beautiful. But you mentioned recruiting, so I was just kind of wondering, what role do you specifically play in the recruiting process?
Well, so the coaches obviously go on the road, and they're visiting with guys. They're able to see them at their high school. They're able to visit them in the home. My position doesn't afford me the opportunity to do that. So number one, I tell my staff, anytime we have people coming to campus, it's our job to put our best foot forward so they can get a true depiction of who we are. The second piece of that is, the players are going to spend more time with us than anybody else in the program. And so if they treat it right, not us, but if they treat the process right, then the strength and conditioning staff can be a huge asset to a player in how he builds his brand, because our job is to put the best version of the players on the field. We don't dictate any playing time. It's let's train all of them and get the best version of every guy so that we can give that to the coaches to put them on the field. So I speak a lot about how we develop our guys physically, how we develop them mentally. I talk about our character development program and how we're equipping these guys with things that we're doing here in the weight room for not just here at Maryland for when they get done with football here, how we're equipping them for real life. We spend a lot of time talking to parents because really this is the part of the program, man, that teaches players how to deal with adversity. It teaches them how to become calloused. Our Devo that I gave today to the staff, there is a lot of information in a scar or a callus. You really, when you go through those processes, you really start to find out who you are and what you're made of. And I think that's what the performance side for us is all about.
Yeah, I mean, I saw your tweet this morning about the calluses, and it's funny that my strength coach used the same expressions in when I, in high school when I played, which I guess is just a universal thing. But I was just wondering, this is kind of probably a hard question for you, but spanning across your time overall, and then maybe at Maryland, who's been taking the biggest jump that you've seen physically, maybe maturity wise as a leader, that type of thing? Like, I know I've read numbers from like Jacob Copeland, who was a transfer, obviously, but I mean, the guy's like a freak. I mean, I saw a number, he like squats 500 plus, benches like 320, something crazy. Like, but who have you seen develop the most, maybe out of all your time as a coach, and then specifically here at Maryland, maturity and physically?
Well, Jabo is a freak, but that question's not very hard, because here's how I'm going to answer it. We've got 7 guys this year invited to the combine. Okay. I think that's the most Maryland's had since like 1986 or something like that. But the most impressive part of that is when you guys watch the combine this year, and I'm on record saying this, we've got several guys in that group who are going to finish in the top 2 or 3 in their position groups at the NFL Combine. And I think that's a testament to the development of the players here. It's a testament to the program. It's a testament to coach for recruiting those guys, but they have some freakish numbers. Those 7 guys that are in the combine, from Deontay Banks to Ja'Cory Bennett, to Jacob Copeland, to Jalen Duncan, a 312-pound lineman. Those guys are going to put up some ridiculous numbers when they go to the combine. And when you talk about growth, they obviously weren't doing that when they first came here. They've always been gifted and they've always been talented, but it's also a testament to the way they've worked since they've been in the program. So I'm going to stick with that. That way I'm not making anybody upset or leaving anybody out with that. So we'll stick with our guys this year.
You must have come across Trent Richardson though, right? That he was a freak.
Yeah,
right.
Trent was he was a special player. He's a good friend of mine. We talk often, and as a matter of fact, he's going to probably come up and do some work with us this summer and getting around our running backs. But
that's dope.
Trent was a freak. In terms of his strength, Julio Jones was pretty unbelievable. Dante Hightower, Courtney Upshaw. When I was at Sanford, I had Nick Williams, who's still playing. That was pretty unbelievable. James Bradbury. He'll be
Super Bowl starter,
playing in another Super Bowl here. Jaquaski Tart, who was with the 49ers. All those guys were, they were really good. Michael Pierce plays right up the road now.
Yeah,
at the Ravens, and he was a 700-pound squatter I had when I was at Sanford. Colorado State, we had Michael Gallup, was a really good player that put up some unbelievable numbers. So the list it goes on and on, but really it comes down to the guy. It's like It's a testament to them and the way they work and the way they buy into the process of what's in front of them.
Yeah, you just kind of talked about some of those relationships that you kind of still have with players, and I know I've heard you talk about you as a coach being vulnerable, talking about mistakes and lessons, and being open to sharing those with the players. And so I was just wondering, where does that come from? Where did you kind of develop that strategy and process, and how you apply it now?
Well, you guys kind of hit on it already, but if you look at my career, I've been extremely blessed and fortunate to be around some of the greatest people in this profession. Was extremely blessed to work for Coach Saban twice on 2 different occasions, and with that was directly under Scott Cochran. I worked for Pat Sullivan when I was at Sanford, who changed my life as a coach and as a person. And so you start to look at some of these things, and what you realize is that there's nothing that we've ever done on our own. And like, I didn't believe that I was this great strength coach when I got into the business. I had to lean on somebody else's belief in what they saw in me. And I had somebody that was speaking into my life saying, if you would just focus on this, you got a chance at being really special at this. And I don't know what it is that person saw, but I was lucky enough for people to be vulnerable with me and to give me an opportunity to do this. And so that's what I try to do with the players. And the truth is this, guys, like, if all they're going to get from me is reps and sets in a program, then I'm not doing my job. The truth is, I want these guys to learn areas that I've struggled in my own life, because if I don't share with them, how are they ever going to get better? And it's like, if I got a gambling problem and you guys are going to walk me through the casino, nobody in that circle is getting anybody better. But if I'm honest with you and I say, listen, I got an issue. All right. And I'm not telling you that I can't go to the casino, but I am saying that I'm going to need some accountability in going through there. Now it's a chance for you to hold me accountable to it. I've given you the opportunity to grow a little bit closer as a friend, as a colleague, as a teammate, as whatever. And we've built some trust with each other, and that's really how people become good at things and how they overcome things. So I believe in that wholeheartedly. And that's the way that I've tried to coach since I've been leading programs from the performance side. And it's the way that I try to be as a person with my players. And I think any of the guys with our players, I think any of the guys that you talk to on our roster would tell you that. So I think it's a way to get the most out of people.
All right, I gotta ask, because every pod I listen to, and they bring on a former Alabama assistant, they're always giving your best Saban story. So can you tell us your funniest or best Nick Saban story from your time working with him?
Yeah, so we are in the off season, and I'm running in the off season, all the coaches are running the drills, running the coaches stations, and with the players, and Coach Saban kind of walks around, and he's getting after whoever, and he's usually with the equipment guy blowing the horn. But of all people, right, I'm coaching the bag drill, and it's not me coaching it. It's Kirby Smart and Jeremy Pruitt's drill. And so my job is to get the players in line so that when it's their turn to go, we're uniform. All right. And so anybody that's been in the off-season program at Alabama knows that, like, if you have a job, you better focus on that singular job with every ounce of focus that you can give it for however long you're in there. And so I'm in the drill, and I'm telling these guys, I'm like, come on, get in line. And I'm saying, get ready to go. That's actually what I'm telling the guys. And so we were big on the cadence at Alabama and how we started a drill. So we never said go. We never said the word go. But as a young assistant, I didn't think that by me telling the guys, get in line, let's get ready to go, all Coach Saban heard was somebody in the drill was saying go. So he starts unloading, and I don't even know what it's about because I'm so locked in on just getting the guys in line. So we finish up for the day, and I'm back in the weight room, and I'm sitting at the fueling station, and I see Kirby Smart and Jeremy Pruitt coming in, beelining for me at the fueling station. And, part of me as a young assistant, I'm thinking, surely they're not coming to me. And then I start looking, and I go, they're coming right at me. And I mean, they lost it because Coach Saban was going off on them because he thought somebody in their drill was saying go. And I was never saying go. I was telling the guys, let's get ready to go. And they unloaded on me. So from there on, I have never coached a drill again and used the term go in a station or a drill. Not once.
That's crazy, man. That's a pretty funny story. I mean, to just get that from Saban and Kirby Smart, that's pretty incredible. So
yeah, pretty unbelievable, but that was a humbling experience.
All right, so as we wrap up here, can you just give us a look at kind of what your next couple weeks look like, and until kind of, I guess, maybe the summer as well, until we see Maryland back on the field?
So we're going to be in the off season all the way up until spring break, which is, I think it starts the week of the 19th or something like that in March. We'll be in off season workouts. So we'll be moving the schedule with the runs and the lifts here next week, where we'll have 4 runs throughout the week and we'll have 3 lifts. Then we'll go on spring break. When we get back from spring break, we'll be in spring football. And in typical schedule in spring football, we'll practice on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, which means we'll train and meet on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. We'll take that up until May, and then we'll go on discretionary time after the guys get out of school in May, and we'll get ready for summer workouts to start that last week of May.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Coach. Appreciate you hopping on, giving us some cool stories, explaining your role. And good luck to you. I mean, this is your time to shine off season, man. So good luck to you. And the rest of the program. And I will be watching the combine because I'm now expecting Banks to run like a 4.25 or something. Jalen Duncan to have the best 3 cone, something like that.
you guys are going to be like shooting me on Twitter and DMing me when you see these guys compete in the combine. I promise you, man, it's going to be something spectacular.
Well, thanks again, Coach. Appreciate you hopping on, and episode should be out soon. So make sure you take a listen.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
You too. Later.
Thank you so much to Ryan Davis for coming on. We talked to him a couple weeks ago, but we thought it was a perfect time to let you guys hear right around the draft. Sam, he called the shots, and so exciting. For those who are fans of Under the Shell and fans of the Left Bench, you've probably seen a lot of the recap of Maryland sports in the last week. It's not been pretty.
No, it's really been ugly for these teams. Really, the only team who had a good weekend was the one I cover for the Diamondbacks, softball. I think they had a 5-0 weekend. Now, granted, they basically played preschoolers because the teams they were playing are certified awful. East Carolina, Monmouth might be the worst group of players I've ever seen. Whatever idea that Monmouth had when they set out this season, it's not going according to plan because their pitchers couldn't locate, their fielders couldn't field. It was just a rough look for the Hawks.
You kind of need all those things to be a good softball team, right, Sam?
That is a certified fact. Brendan Weissel only brings integrity to this podcast, except for when he's scheming to stop Big Mike from winning votes. He's an integral guy, but that's something that we're going to have to bring up later because, folks, there's a lot of controversy surrounding that one. But anyway, yeah, softball, good weekend, 5-0. Played some horrible teams, so you can't really put too much value into it. I actually, not to self-plug, but I actually had a pretty cool story I did about Courtney Weish and kind of analytics and how she looks at them and how she uses different pitch planes and rings, small little rings to help her with her pitching. So check that out if you want.
Yeah, not going to get into all that now, but that's a neat story, and I'd recommend that you all go check it out. It's not something you really hear about. Mike, talking now about baseball, had a complete opposite weekend.
Yeah, softball went 5-0 according to Sam. Baseball did the opposite. They went 0-3.
It's not according to me. It is a fact that
all
happens.
Right. They went 5-0. Sam covered the games. Baseball went 0-3. A pretty bad weekend for them.
Combined, they had a winning record, though.
Combined?
Yeah, baseball and softball combined.
That is a fact. That is a fact. But when you isolate the two teams together, they lost to then number 4 Ole Miss. Then lost a really tight one on the Saturday game to number 7 Vanderbilt.
I have a question about that game, Mike. So they bring in a freshman at the end, right, to close it out. What was the deal with that? And Vaughn, I know after the game said he basically lost it for them. He's like, I didn't manage that game well enough. What was it that was the mistake in your eye, and why was it a freshman they turned to at the end there? Just out of pitching at that point?
The problem wasn't bringing in Kyle McCoy. The problem was bringing him in.
They didn't let him start the inning.
They brought back out Nigel Belgrave, who, is, by the way, is a terrific closer. He throws heat. He's great, but he just got out of a jam the last inning. He pitched a couple innings before. He was exhausted. You bring him back. He gets a couple guys on base. Then they pull him, bring in McCoy. McCoy was in a tough position.
Yeah, it is a tough spot.
Freshman
against an elite program trying to save a game that's probably heading the wrong way. And I think I like Vaughn because I think that takes some accountability to own up to it. I also get sending Belgrave back out there. Is he a senior, Mike, or he's an older guy, right? I know that to be a fact. Like he's pitched in the program before.
He's a redshirt sophomore.
Okay, so he's basically a junior at this point. So been in the program a while, and I get sending him back out there. You probably should have gone away from him, especially once you saw he was gassed and kind of out of it.
And like you said, Vaughn took accountability for it. He said that was the first thing he said in the locker room, and that was one of the first things he said post-game too. Mm-hmm. So it's great when you see that in a coach.
Well, what's not great, though?
When you drop to Hawaii the next game, that's Sunday. Going into the weekend, I thought that Maryland expected and hoped as a team that they would go 1-1 against either Vanderbilt or Ole Miss, win one of those games, and then beat Hawaii next, who was unranked at the time. That was not the case. Pitching again was not great against Hawaii. Neither was offense as a whole, which was kind of strange seeing it that weekend because they only averaged 3.6 runs last weekend after they entered averaging 7.6 the previous 8 games. So that was kind of strange. Pitching, like I said, they had an ERA of 6 that weekend, which I guess is an improvement over the 9.7 they had against Ole Miss in the series the weekend before.
Yeah.
But the pitching, they're averaging a 7.6 on the year. It's not strong, and they just struggled to hit on all cylinders completely. They did it the second game against USF to start the season when they won. They only allowed that 1 run, which was nice. But other than that, they've struggled to hit on all cylinders consistently.
Yeah, and moving away from baseball now, talk about men's basketball.
Another heartbreaker.
Gonna play in the Big Ten tournament later this week. We've said this as many times as we could on this podcast. Maryland has been just terrible away. Not that bad neutral, which I keep bringing up when people make the point that they're bad away. See how that translates.
Who have they played neutral?
Miami,
All right.
Tennessee, St. Louis. I mean,
It's a small sample.
it's 3 games, 2-1, played solid. It's going to be very interesting. The Big Ten tournament is going to tell us a ton about how Maryland's going to do in the NCAA tournament. I think it's possible. You have no idea with this team. You really don't. I think Maryland could lose to Nebraska like we saw them do away.
The bottom side of the bracket is a joke. Like, let's be honest. Not a joke, but that it's there for the taking, Brendan. You saw them lose away.
Absolutely.
And now I think they have a chance. You play Nebraska. You got to hope you can win that one. I know they lost on the road, but they were in that game. Mike, we all know Jameer Young really struggled in that one.
Mm-hmm.
I know you talked about that. But then I think you would get a Northwestern most likely if that were to occur. And
It's a tough team.
yeah, it is. But you beat them before, and it's not like Northwestern's this elite program that's going to be in the top tiers of whoa. They scare us a lot. You know what I mean, Brendan? So I just think that as you look at this bracket kind of shaping up, I think Maryland has a chance if they're able to get past Nebraska, get past Indiana. Who obviously Maryland beat at home. What do you see from them maybe in that 6-3 game against the Hoosiers, and then can they get past Northwestern to maybe make it to Sunday?
I honestly don't expect Maryland to make it past the quarterfinal game. I do expect them to beat the winner of Minnesota-Nebraska, which most likely will be Nebraska. You'll know by the time this podcast is out. It's going to be very difficult for Maryland to win a game on the road because they haven't – I mean, it's neutral. They haven't shown me anything in the past 2 months that would make me think that they could go away from College Park, Maryland, and win a high-level basketball game. They played very strongly against those teams. Close game against Michigan State. Close game against Purdue. I mean, you go down 15-0, whatever. But at this point, I just have no confidence in them to play with enough energy and play with enough heart on the road. So I really don't see them getting past Indiana.
Plus, a really good point. I think Mike said that Northwestern's a tough team, and I also think with Indiana, they're going to travel well, their fans. Like, it will be a Northwestern, Indiana, Illinois type of environment because it's in Chicago, obviously.
Big Midwest.
So it's like those fans are going to travel out. Do we really think that Maryland fans are going to be out? I don't know because, I mean, Brendan and Mike, you two can speak to it. Mike, what if in Big Ten tournaments in the past, what's the Maryland fandom been like? Is it really a huge presence there, would you say, or is it kind of
when it was in DC?
Yeah, not DC. I'm talking
any other year. It's not that big of a presence.
It depends what it is. If the game is being played in Chicago, Northwestern. I mean, that's
well, Northwestern has like 8 fans.
Yeah, but it's right in there. Yeah. It's right in there.
It's going to be tough for them. You don't get the Xfinity Center in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah. So I think we're all expecting probably. I think you would set it at 1.5, and then kind of go from there.
I'll say this. The whole season I've been saying that Jameer Young is the key to Maryland succeeding. I got a new guy who I think is the key to Maryland succeeding. It's Donta Scott. He is the senior who's been here all 4 years. He was the leader of this team heading into this season, and he cannot be putting up numbers like he has been so far. Past 5 games,
tell him, Mike.
He's averaging only 8.8 points per game and 4.6 rebounds. You cannot do that. If you're that guy that you entered this season being, you got to be better. You got to lead this team. You got to set the example, and he has not done that.
I absolutely agree. Donta Scott, first 10 games of the year was a different player than he's been. Just final thing to wrap up. You look at the records on the road for some of these teams. Northwestern was 7-4, Purdue 8-3, Indiana 5-7, and that's why they got the double bye-in.
And what was Maryland?
Maryland was 2-9. And
nice.
That's good, right, guys?
Yeah, and I guess who those 2 wins came against, fellas? Louisville and Minnesota, the 2 worst Power 5 teams on KenPom. So great job on the road by Maryland this year. Really showed that road warrior mentality and went in and had some big upsets in opposing arenas.
Now, who has the blame gone to? Actually, no, we'll cover this next week.
Yeah, if you guys want to hear a nice debate, we're going to talk a lot about March Madness
All of
next week. We're going to do a little debate. We're also going to have Abby Myers come on the podcast. Speaking of women's basketball, they don't play for a bit. Sam, what's the deal with them?
Yeah, there's not really much to talk about. I will say that this is just my opinion. I never really noticed this before, but covering it, I don't understand why women's basketball doesn't do all of their conference tournaments the week before men's conference tournament and then do their selection Sunday the week before men's selection Sunday. It would generate so much more eyeballs. People will be paying. People are craving for tournament basketball now, right? People are watching like Iona play in conference tournaments. Why not do your selection Sunday the week prior so that you're able to gain as much eyeballs as possible? Instead, you run it up against men's. Like, we all know what's going to happen there. Men's is going to generate the eyeballs, and people will shut off the TVs. Obviously the dedicated fans will watch, and women's basketball fans will tune in. And Maryland fans should tune in because this team is going to get a 2 seed. I mean, it's simple as that. They're not going to get up to the 1 line because of that loss to Iowa. It was a thriller, 89-86. I think it really looked like an Elite Eight game, guys. I mean, Mike, I know that you've watched this team, since you were a kid. They continue to be at the top of, programs and standards and that type of thing. On the 2 line, getting 2 games in College Park, how far can this team go? Answer that question in 5 words or less.
Crowd size.
Oh, interesting.
Well said. Very well said.
I think it comes down to what the crowd size is. We saw against Iowa, they had a really good crowd that game. We need the students to pack that stadium. This is our team. Coming from a student perspective, we're supposed to be unbiased journalists, but this is our university. You're supposed to go out there and support your school. So I don't know why more students do not come in. It's a lot more of the families that come to these games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for the women's team, it's going to be very interesting. I think women's basketball fans would have been very satisfied if the Iowa game was a Final Four game. That was one of the best basketball games we've seen all year. That could have been a championship. I mean, that's high-level play, and, only time will tell. We'll see what happens in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think that you're looking at a 2 line, and I think that this team, even though they lost in the Big Ten championship, they continued to be really impressive in all of their games. However, another team that maybe wasn't as impressive in the Big Ten tournament yet again was the wrestling squad.
Yeah, so from one NCAA championship to the next, not successful in terms of Big Ten metrics, but that doesn't mean they weren't successful in terms of the NCAA metrics or their own metrics. Maryland had 5 wrestlers qualify for NCAA championships. Braxton Brown, Jaron Smith, Ethan Miller, Cal Miller, and Jackson Smith all qualified. Most wrestlers since 2014. So it's a big step in the right direction for the program, and doesn't take place until March 16th through 18th. Big bracket style there for wrestling. And so we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll give you an update of what happens. But exciting stuff there.
Yeah, I think that's a super interesting development, especially with wrestling when you have it's kind of an individual team sport. Having those nominations is something that Alex Clemson can go to in terms of being able to support his recruiting pitches and that type of thing. Because again, they're facing elite teams in the Big Ten, and they're not the only team in Maryland that's facing elite teams. The men's lacrosse team has had a gauntlet of a schedule. Lost in triple overtime it was to Notre Dame. Brendan, I know you were at that game. What did you see from this squad, and why were they not ultimately able to pull it out against the Irish?
Before I talk about the Maryland team, let's talk about the fans. Packed stadium for what it can be for lacrosse. Exciting crowd, a lot of Notre Dame fans. Goes into triple overtime. Maryland battled. I mean, Maryland was up 10-12 with in the fourth quarter. Goes into overtime. I mean, this is a game you're going to look back at and say they didn't win, but they learned so much. You have a freshman goalie playing in triple overtime against one of the best teams in the country. You know that Notre Dame is an extremely good team when Maryland's ranking doesn't move after they lose, and that's usually a good mark. Get back this weekend against Albany on Saturday away. Should be a win for Maryland. Coming off the loss, going to be fired up. No one likes to lose. No one likes to lose at home. No one likes to lose in triple overtime. I think this is a point in the season where they look themselves in the mirror. Have had 2 losses, didn't lose a game at all last year. I think you're going to see a different Maryland team, and I think they're going to go on and win a lot of games in a row.
Speaking of home losses, then we got women's lacrosse. Sam, thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was just another loss. Tough way to go out when you're in a spot like that, Brendan. I think that this team, I think that they're showing a little bit of fight. You play 2 top 15 opponents, James Madison, Denver, that type of thing. Also Florida, so 3 back-to-back top 15 guys. It's hard to overcome that, but the offense has really kind of struggled. What have you seen from that?
I think it was just surprising. I think Kathy Reese has been undefeated at home in 9 seasons, and all-time record, something like 162-6 now, or 161-6 after these games. And so, statistically, you don't expect Maryland women's lacrosse to lose at home. And so when it happens, I think it's a bit of a shock to the fans, and I think people overreact a bit. I mean, Denver's a very solid program, played pretty sloppy in that game, but Kathy Reese said it after so many new faces on the team, so many new transfers. It's going to be a long process. I mean, Big Ten play, Maryland has dominated that, and dominated is a light way to say that. Absolutely dominated that, and I think when they get into Big Ten play, which is coming up shortly, you'll see a team that doesn't lose many games, and I would honestly be surprised if Maryland loses any games in Big Ten play this year, and that'll be a big mark to see where the program is going. But still, I mean, just didn't play all that well in the Denver game. But Wednesday night against William & Mary, won at home 22-4. William & Mary, not a very solid women's lacrosse program, but still impressive to go out there and get a huge win.
Yeah, getting back on track, and it was an interesting job by them to that's an interesting scheduling technique to go from 3 top 15 teams to playing a program like that. But they got back on the track. You saw that type of response that you would want to if you're the coach there, and they get Villanova on Saturday for a big one.
Yeah, like you just said, I was talking to one of the SIDs after the game, and they were saying that's why you play a tough loaded schedule at the beginning of the year. You don't want to lose those games, but if you do lose them, it's okay because you learn something. Maryland playing Villanova. It was the game last year, actually. It was a super cold day in College Park. They moved the game inside. If you guys remember seeing that on Twitter, so they played in the field house. I would expect Maryland to get the win, not probably as easily as the win against William & Mary, but not as tough as opponent. I would expect Maryland to kind of get back on track here, then has Georgetown, and then start Big Ten play. But should be a solid couple of weeks, or a week here for Maryland women's lacrosse.
Yeah. So I mean that's a good recap of all the sports. Kind of a tough weekend for Maryland sports. So you'd look for them to all get back on track here this week, and then into the future, but not the future, the past. That's our segment.
What a transition!
We all know it. We all love it. Our investigative journalist himself, Brendan Weissel, got us another terrific terp.
Yeah, maybe not we, well said there, Sam, first of all, like to talk about the track program and poke fun, because it's funny, because they're not very good. But they were, in fact, incredible at one point in time. From 1954 to 1981, Maryland men's track, combining indoor and outdoor, won 52 ACC championships as a team, 26 indoor, 26 outdoor. They won almost every single championship there was to win. I mean, they lost one in indoor and then one in out. I mean, they basically won every single team championship, which in track is not easy to do with all the talent that's turning over. And you may know this name. Jim Kehoe is who the track is now named after. So let me give you a bit of a history about him. So he was the coach of cross country indoor and outdoor from 1946 to 1969, and then he was the athletic director at Maryland from 1969 to 1978. Signed some of the big name coaches. Really got the Maryland program on track and who it is today. He was a son of someone with Standard Oil, so very old money type of guy. Came to Maryland, raised in Bel Air, graduated from Bel Air High School, state champion in a half miler, and then at Maryland was undefeated in dual meet competition. And in track, dominant athletes are dominant, but going out there every single meet and winning it every time. Had the half mile record, a 2 mile record when he was here at Maryland, and then went to the Army in 1942, and then came back to coach. He won 48 cross-country indoor and outdoor championships in the Southern Conference and the ACC. I mean, those type of numbers, 48 total. I mean, just pure dominance in the ACC and the Southern Conference. Really didn't lose, and it's a crazy turn that the program has taken in the past couple 20 years since then. And just one quick note about him, although we can talk about how incredible he was as a track coach, as an athletic director, some pushback he had actually against Title IX, and it was because he saw women's athletics didn't generate any income, and so he really didn't support them as much as he should have when Title IX was around, and didn't give as many opportunities to women's sports.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, everybody in the past is going to have that type of legacy, different era, different type of expectations. I also would say, if he was here and that was track really generating that much revenue, in terms of the school.
No, I mean men's track wasn't driven. It's like
So it's a little bit of a hypocritical argument from the guy, but very interesting. I think the part about old money and then coming to Maryland and really like just dominating, that's a really cool story. And also I like how you set it up so that you got to hear both sides. Obviously not everyone is perfect. If you try to just whitewash or wipe away everything that someone did, it's not the same as analyzing them from a individuality perspective. So another great, terrific terp. And Brennan.
Yeah, I mean, hell of a track coach, but it's important to note those things. And since the run of 1981, where Maryland won their final outdoor championship, Maryland has not won another ACC or Big Ten track championship. So he truly set the mark, and it's not been reached since then. I don't think anybody will ever reach that mark again.
Another mark that nobody will reach is Coach Loxley's win on the nicknames draft.
Are you out of your mind? What are you talking about?
A little bit of controversy. We had multiple polls going, Mike. Why was Coach Loxley deemed the winner in your eyes?
Well, first and foremost, there's a lot of talk about voter fraud in this
there really
country.
is.
The biggest example of it is what Brendan did to me last week on the podcast.
Some are
He
comparing
cut
Brendan
off-
to Sean Hannon.
He cut off my last pick, and I never finished my team.
I just want to sincerely apologize. 100% my fault. Mike didn't get his
This
team.
guy taking
Mike didn't get his team out.
And
But
the
Mike's
worst
team
part,
was-
the
Mike-
worst part about it is I sent it to you 3 days before it was released too, saying there was an issue.
I mean, he's bringing receipts.
I also edit this episode, so we'll see what gets in. But your full team was on the graphic. It was just not a good team. People liked my.
Right, but you listened to the
I got-
podcast for the reasoning.
I know, but I was told that I got many votes from many Quakers out there. Sent it to my Quakers channels, and so sorry. That's all I have to say about that. And I think I technically did win, but we can give it to Loxley if you guys would like.
That's a fair point, because I won on my Instagram poll, and I received the jargon of my mother, who said that it was disgusting that I voted for a Spartan and a Horned Frog, considering they are Michigan alums. Obviously TCU, not in the recent memory of Michigan fans. But we have a new top 5 this week, guys. It's an exciting one, too. Interesting take.
I'm very excited about it. Mike, tell us what we're doing here.
So we are doing a top 5 of non-basketball athletes at the University of Maryland.
So this is a starting basketball 5 of non-basketball players. I know that is incredibly complicated to try to understand. You will understand more once we get into it, because, again, we're around March Madness. We want to do stuff around basketball. This is a starting lineup of different sports here at Maryland, different players. Qualifications, Mike: 2 women, 3 men. Or you can swap it whichever way you'd like. 3 women, 2 men. You just have to have, an equal balance. Yeah. And then you have to do someone from a different sport. You cannot do multiple players from the same sport. Is that correct? Any
Yes,
other
that is correct.
qualifications?
They
on
had
this?
to play in 2022 on a Maryland team as well.
But I don't think I missed any, guys. No, everybody's shaking their head here. So
Let me get the first pick. I haven't gotten the first pick in a while.
Mike's going to start us off with his top 5. Again, this is not a draft. This is just giving your top 5. We really think this is unique enough to where we won't have the same players.
Yeah, but we'll just go point guard. We'll all go around and say our point guards, and then we'll go from there. Okay, go for it.
All right. This is an easy one, I feel. I'm going to take Dante Trader Jr. He already plays 2 sports. He can play another one now.
That's a really good pick.
He
That's
can already-
how did I miss that? I do not know, but that is a strong start, Mike.
So we're saying I can also pick
I'm
him at
taking
some
him
point.
part of the lacrosse team. I'm taking him part of the lacrosse
Okay, that's
team.
fair. Okay, very fair. I was planning on taking him for a different position. You'll see that later. My first pick, point guard, Caleb Woods, long jumper for Maryland track. First pick.
Good pick, Brendan. I'm going to go Corey Edmondson. Freshman, small, gritty, teammates love her. I think she'd be a great point guard on this team to lead my squad into battle. Now we'll do shooting guard. Go around. I can start us off. I'm going to go Jada McFarland. Softball player, won All Big Ten Freshman of the Year as a freshman. She then was second team All Big Ten in softball. Her second year, none of that applies to basketball, but she's very athletic. She used to play basketball in high school, I believe. So I think adding her on my squad will really give us a good shooter, good athlete, that type of thing.
Next for me, shooting guard is Colin Griffith. He is a freshman on the soccer team. Gritty guy, very athletic, good with his feet, good footwork. You know what they say in basketball, you need good footwork to be a good shooter. So that's why he's shooting guard.
It's true. Good point.
Okay, for shooting guard, you're looking for someone who can score. You're looking for someone to put the ball into the net. Another sport with a net, field hockey.
Very good point.
Hope Rose
This
knows
guy's
how
transition.
to score.
What a play.
Hope Rose is going to be my shooting guard. I believe she was. I'm going to check this real quick.
That's a good pick, Mike. That's terrible podcasting, but it's a good pick on your part.
Yeah,
to go
Hope
with
Rose. She was the leading goal scorer for the Terps. I should know that. I covered field hockey, but yes, Hope Rose.
Good pick. Back to your small forward.
Small forward. Small forward. You're looking for someone who can lead a team, someone who has experience. I'm going to take Scott Tupper, the field hockey assistant.
Respect.
He's played in 3 Olympic Games for field hockey, and he's been Canada's captain for the past 8 years for whatever competition they're playing in. So
Well done. That's really well done.
there you go.
Brendan, go.
Yeah, I will be honest. I was not expecting you to take that guy. My pick here is Dante Trader. Already took him. Like you said, plays 2 sports, why not 3?
Hold on.
Are we saying I can't take him?
Can you take the same
I
player?
think you can. I think it's
That
fair.
is
We didn't draft. We're saying I can take him.
I think that now, however, I do think Brendan should use him as football Dante Trader.
I will use him as football. That's very fair.
I think that's
That's very fair.
different.
That's very fair. All right, perfect. Good.
I will be also taking a football player, Dante Demas, 6'6", bouncy, athletic. If I could get pre-injury Dante Demas, that would be elite. But I can't. I really think he's a good small forward, athletic, solid ball player. So I like that. For my power forward, I'm gonna go with a baseball guy. Baseball guys, we're all shooters. We can shoot. We're a little stretch 4 action. Nick LaRusso. Think he's gonna be a good stretch 4 for me. Pretty jacked, veteran guy, senior. So I like that pick.
6'2", 215.
Yeah, like he's gonna be solid. He's undersized, but he can shoot. I would hope that type of thing.
I don't know how much scoring we're gonna have on my team, but we're gonna have a lot of good rebounding. And so, power forward Jaron Smith.
Oh my god.
I mean, honestly, would you?
5'8".
Would you? Yeah, but would you want to box him out?
No.
Can you? I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're 7'3". If you're not close to the basket, you can't get the ball. He's gonna push you back.
He's like a smaller Grant Williams.
I mean, he's gonna be. He's a bigger. I mean, he's gonna be. I would be scared to play against him in
He's the
basketball.
round mound of rebounds.
Well said. All right, Mike.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to match you for power forward. I'm going to take Jackson Smith, the other Smiths of the wrestling team.
Okay. Good pick.
And then to finish it off with center. Center, you're looking for someone who can really command the game, Someone who can, you can put them out there and they know how to command it. I'm going to take Trinity Schlotterbeck.
Good pick.
Pitcher. She has a sub-2 ERA right now.
Did you know she played basketball in high school?
There we go. I didn't even know that.
Look
she
at that,
knows how to
Mike.
play basketball.
And she's a great person. Read my feature on her.
So, yeah. Trinity Schlotterbeck.
I don't actually, looking at everybody's draft board here, it is unbelievable that nobody has taken someone on the volleyball team. Like, what are we guys, what are we doing here? All-time blocks leader at Maryland, Raynell Jones. I mean, are you guys serious?
That might win it for him. That's a really good pick.
That was strategy.
Oh, I feel really awful now.
I mean, like Sam Sires on the board.
Yeah, I know. Should I go Sam Sire? Yeah, I'm gonna go Sam Sire. I'm gonna. That might be a little controversial that I'm amending my draft board, but that's a great pick to round out my team. So
who was your other pick gonna be?
It was gonna be Jamie Lowell. So sorry, Jamie, but you're going to the Pine.
To be honest, Sam Sire, much better pick there.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. That's a good squad I like. So we will post those on the Instagram, on the Twitter. You can follow us anywhere at terrapinsportscentral.com. Get all of your podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any digital platforms. Make sure you vote for the pod drafts. We're keeping track of these, so it's very important.
Thank you for telling people where they can get the podcast after they've already listened to the entire episode.
Yeah, Brendan, that's a great point. But, I just wanted to make sure people understand about Under the Shell. Again, vote for the podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram.
Share with your friends.
That's right. And we'll see you next time with the March Madness special. So happy Halloween. Happy Purim. Boo Heyman. Take us away. Thank you for listening.